Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome, especially to those who are attending their first time ATP status update. We're so glad you have joined us today as we have several exciting program updates to share with you. I am Dr. Joanna Wang, Chief Technology Officer for ATP. As a reminder, and for our new attendees, ATP transformation program is dedicated to standardizing finance, HR, and research administration business processes and implementing Workday and Huron Research Suite at all UW system campuses. The end result will be a more resilient administrative environment that advances the UW's mission of research, teaching, and outreach. Currently, campuses across the UW system rely on outdated, disconnected technologies and hundreds of supplemental systems to complete vital administrative tasks. This limits our access to reliable data, creates security risks, increases staffing burden, and hinders the UW system from fulfilling its missions. Workday will replace human resource system, shared finance system, and some of our current supplemental systems as well. Huron Research Suite will complement Workday to cover all pre through post-award tasks. We will co-create consistent end-to-end business processes across departments, divisions, and schools. I'm eager to tell you more about our work, but first, I'm very pleased to introduce our executive sponsors, James Langdon, Vice President for Administration with UW System Administration, and Rob Cramer, UW Medicine, Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration. Jim, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joanna, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. As Joanna said, I'm Jim Langdon. I'm Vice President for Administration at UW System. I've been at System since November of 2020 and previously served at the Department of Administration, where I was involved in similar ERP implementations at the state. So I have a great appreciation for this project and its benefits, and also the work that goes into delivering a successful initiative like ATP. The key driver for ATP's success, we recognize as you, the people who make up System and make it function. And that's why we're putting you at the forefront of this important work. Sessions like today, our new newsletter, and other communications devices are critical to keep you informed. Keeping all of our campuses informed, frankly, is a top priority for ATP. I want to talk just briefly about one of the ways that we're doing this on a more personal level. Our unified approach will deliver the benefits of Workday across the entire system, and our job is to make sure that no campus is left behind as we go forward with the project. Been so pleased to join Joanna and change management team members to visit all the campuses over the past few weeks. Actually, we have one campus set to go next week, and we look forward to seeing our friends in Whitewater a week from Thursday. We've been meeting with leadership at these institutions to understand their challenges, particularly the challenges that they face as we move from designing into the next phases and ultimately into deployment 2 years from now. We're listening to campus needs, sharing information about where ATP is at and what's coming next. As I said, we'll conclude our visits to all the comprehensives in Milwaukee next week, and we'll have more to report on those visits in future updates. We're constantly reminded that our our first guiding principle of ATP is start with people and innovate together. And that's frankly what's happening today. I'm so pleased that the ATP design teams began meeting with subject matter experts from across all the UW system campuses this spring and are continuing to work with focus and validation groups throughout the architect stage. There's representation from each campus on these groups. Then they're guiding decision making for process design based on the needs of end users. And having that voice of the end user at this and really throughout the project is so important. We understand the commitment that folks at campuses are giving to the project to work on these teams. It's an additional burden for them, and their first priority has to be to make sure their institutions continue to run effectively during the ATP design project. There's nothing really more important for you than to make sure that you can focus on your day jobs and make sure that your campuses continue to be effective, even as we're building and deploying ATP. And to that end, we're so grateful for your time and the expertise that you've been so gracious to give us as we talk about design and other issues. So thank you so much. Pleased also that our change strategy team has increased communications in recent weeks, and Joanna will explain a bit more about that later. And feedback from campus leaders as they're in developing engagement plans at their universities. And again, I'm grateful to the campuses for joining us in change management activities as we proceed with the project. I'm reminded that we're 24 months from deployment, and we have every opportunity for success in our hands. We track the project constantly. Pleased to report that we're on schedule, we're on budget, and I am optimistic about our plan to go live in July of 24. So with that, I'll conclude. And again, thank you for your support of ATP. And more importantly, thank you for your commitment to your campus, to UW System and Wisconsin. And with that, my pleasure now to introduce Rob Cramer, UW-Madison Vice Chancellor for Finance Administration, for his remarks this morning. Rob?
Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Joanna, for that opening for today. It is a pleasure to be here this morning with everyone, and I want to thank you for taking the time to join us. The Administrative Transformation Program, ATP, is a strategic priority for all of us working on it, for the Board of Regents and others, and it's really important to spend this time together to talk through it and share updates and have a chance to discuss things. For those of you who don't know me, I am currently the Vice Chancellor for Finance Administration at UW-Madison. I've also spent time working at UW System as Vice President there, interacting with all the campuses. And I also spent a significant amount of time as the Chief Business Officer at University of Wisconsin-Platteville. And it's interesting as I think about the Administrative Transformation Program, some of the challenges and barriers that I've seen over the years from those different chairs in terms of problems that we had to confront, things that took time away from our mission, the things that added value for faculty, for researchers, for students, and how ATP, if we're intentional and thoughtful about this, can really address a number of those challenges and position our UW campuses for success going forward. At the last Board of Regents meeting, one of those things was highlighted to me and brought forward as the board discussed the budget for next year. And one of the regents expressed frustration about our current challenges with pulling together good financial statements during the course of each fiscal year, actuals versus budgets. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with the challenges that this presents because of the way we currently track our expenditures and the multitude of systems across institutions. A second one that I have seen in the past is just challenges understanding where we are with vacancies at a campus, recruitments, retention issues, and trying to understand what positions are in different places along the recruitment path. It seems like a fairly simple question the first time I asked it at an institution, but it proved to be fairly challenging to answer given the way we had put HRS together and the way we were implementing it and tracking on some of the transactions and data. And the third piece I would highlight is kind of just the built environment we have today, the complexity of it, the number of systems, ancillary systems, and trying to provide a higher degree of security for our information, for our data, for the people who use these systems. The number of integrations, number of standalone and integrated systems, it really is a constant and ongoing struggle to improve our security posture. And as we move forward, that will be one of the elements that ATP helps us to address. For me, ATP is something I've been involved with from the early conception of the idea, working at UW System, partnering then with Vice Chancellor Heller around our ERP systems, the HR and shared financial system, and some of the challenges that those were presenting both at UW-Madison and across the other institutions. And as we've moved forward on this journey, I'm more confident than ever that this really is the right project at the right time and for the right reasons. As I've noted, as Jim has noted, as Joanna has noted, as you all observe day in and day out, the current services and processes that we provide coming out of some of our technical systems really aren't supporting any of our campuses well or the needs of the entire UW system. As I look forward, one of the key things will be recognizing the different identities and needs of each and every one of our campuses across the system, and how that is so critically important that success of ATP touch all the campuses from UW-Madison's scale, its research portfolio, all the way through UW-Milwaukee and the comprehensives in their needs, and then aggregating up to those needs of the system administration and Board of Regents. I think it's safe to say that all the people who've been working on this are very dedicated to working collaboratively across the program, really making sure we hit success for all those involved and not just some of the chairs that we happen to represent at the moment. One of the big changes that was made in the last year or so is moving from kind of the two-phase approach that was presented to the board early on to a unified approach. I think there are some significant benefits to this, including more engagement for all the comprehensives early on in terms of helping to figure out how to streamline and standardize our business practices and processes. How do we have better data transparency and access? And as I noted, how do we improve our cybersecurity for all the campuses at the same time? These really do address very directly the goals of advancing our mission of research, teaching, and outreach. Thank you again for your time today. I know this is going to be challenging. Any transformation program is, and it's really critical that we do this well for our faculty, research staff, students, and for all of us involved here today. And with that, I would turn it back to Joanna. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you, Rob. Thank you for the articulation about the importance of this ATP program. Now, I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the planning stage accomplishment. We completed the planning stage at the end of April. The primary outcome was to finalize our scope, schedule, and budget. We also built our team and onboarded our system integrator partner, Huron. We also held 77 discovery and foundation sessions with SMEs across the UW system to review current processes and needs before beginning design discussions. Let's talk about ATP scope somewhat. As I noted, defining our program scope was a major outcome of the planning stage, and I'd like to share some of the details with you. We will be implementing 17 Workday modules, and 4 Huron Research Suite modules as a part of a RAMP, or Research Administration Modernization Project. As you can see, We will be standardizing many of our finance and HR, human resources business processes across the 13 campuses. Timeline. As Jim mentioned and also Rob mentioned, we are compressed our timeline from 5 years of project timeline to 30 months. Now we're in a June timeline. We only have roughly 25 months left. Our timeline includes both Workday and Huron research modules. For the future reference, you can find more detailed timeline information on the ATP website. Huron Research Suite modules will go live on individual timelines. Workday will go live on all campuses on July 2024. Training will take place during the testing stage of each implementations. Now, I'd like to share with our audience a little bit about the current ATP organizational chart. We have hired knowledgeable team leads and members to oversee each aspect of this software implementation and also business transitions as well. They are UW experience will inform every decision-making processes and stages. And now I'd like to tell you more about what our teams are working on, specifically in the architect stage that we kicked off on May 3rd, and it will run through November of this year. The architect stage focuses on understanding of business requirements and how Workday can be configured to satisfy the business requirement. And in the Workday environment, we call it Workday tenant. ATP and the Huron research team members are currently working with folks and validation groups made up from the people across all UW campuses, people who complete financial and HR tasks daily. So they have the first-hand experience to work with ATP team to complete these design sessions. Currently, we are identified more than 230 design sessions. So these design sessions will guide the design decisions for this upcoming new business processes. Nearly over 100 meetings already take place by end of June. So we are close to our June mark. As Jim mentioned, another critical engagement of the architect stage is to move our engagement and the communication plans forward. Jim, our OCM team and myself have visited 12 comprehensive campuses to meet with chancellors and their leadership team to learn about their unique needs, their challenges of each campuses. Those sessions are the first step in the broader engagement plan we will implement in the fall of this year. Engaging staff on all campuses is integral to the success of ATP because they do provide very, very first-hand valuable input to the campus visit tours. Overall, we have engaged more than 2,500 stakeholders from all UW system campuses in different meetings and focus groups, validation groups, and design sessions as well. And additionally, approximately 400 campus representatives are informing our works by serving on focus and validation groups. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for participating those design sessions, and thank you for your contribution and your time as well. It's much, much appreciated. We also have these sources of program information to help you to stay up to date. The ATP website provides information about all aspects of the programs, including the latest news and development. In addition, the ATP Touchpoint newsletters was launched in May to provide high-level updates on the program and links to the more information. Workstream updates for our HR, finance, IT, and research administration teams. Every month, each workstream leads will send out a monthly update to the governance groups to inform what's the latest development, what's the achievement as well. And you can also find current and past work stream updates on the ATP website as well. Now, I'd like to take a moment to answer some of the questions that has been submitted to our event today. The first question was, how are you involving people from each campus in your work and decision? So let me answer this question. This is one of the most frequently asked questions we received, and I am very glad it's still on top of our leadership and ATP team's mind. We really are taking our people first approach. That's our foundation principle. As I mentioned earlier in our presentation, hundreds of participants from campuses around the UW system are participating in design sessions, focus groups, and validation groups as well. This gives the staff from each campus the opportunity to help shape our new business processes and how the University of Wisconsin will use Workday. At the end of the summer, we will also be implementing our engagement plan, which will facilitate information sharing between ATP, campus leaders, and all staff. We will use multiple channels to answer your questions and keep you informed. The next question come to our event is that can you tell us more about the campus visit with leadership? Well, thank you for that question. I'd like to ask Jim Langdon to provide some more details about the campus visits. Jim.
Thanks, Joanna. Yeah, thanks for the question. We initiated these campus visits at the beginning of May to engage with chancellors and their cabinets to talk about ATP generally, but also specifically how ATP will roll out on the campuses. We've had great conversations really across the board, and chancellors and their cabinets have been very generous with their time over the past several weeks as we've visited each university. As I said, I think we've been to 11 so far, and we finish next week with Whitewater. In general, the conversations have been positive with respect to understanding and discussing rather the benefits of ATP, but also frank about some of the challenges that we'll face going forward. Issues like, for instance, workforce availability to participate in ATP as we continue through architect and future development has come up. And we're working with the universities. We will be working with universities to address those challenges. Additionally, we've talked about the need to build a lot of time into the process for training. This has been a failure of past implementation. Certainly in my career, I think we've given short shrift to training opportunities for staff to set them up for success when a system has gone live. And that's something that we're committed to not repeat in this case, and in fact have dedicated, I think, up to a year for training, both in terms of development and for the rollout of training as well. We've also, in that regard, talked about the types of training that might be needed at each university. We're fully aware that a one-size-fits-all, a cookie-cutter approach just doesn't work. What's good for one campus may not work for another. So we want to have those conversations now so we can be properly resourced to support training at the universities when that time comes. In addition to that, we talked about some of the timing challenges as well. Certainly, universities run on an academic cycle, and that creates periods of great activity and periods where there might be more opportunity to take a breath and participate in training. So we're working with the campuses there as well. We've talked about ancillary systems that will be decommissioned through the process. The objective of ATP to standardize processes as we go forward. Those, I think, are some of the key themes that have emerged from the campus visits. And I see that Colleen Howes has joined us, and she has had an important role in these campus visits as well. Colleen, do you have a comment to add?
Thank you so much, Jim. No, I think you covered a lot of the great themes. I think one of the things that we're really happy with is the amount of discussion that we've had with the campuses. It's really helped inform, for me personally, our change management strategy. So we look forward to partnering with all our campuses as we roll out not only training, but an increase in communication and engagement. So it's been really helpful. Thank you.
Back to you, Joanna.
Well, thank you, Jim. So the next question come to our event was, how are you driving system-wide transformation during the architect stage? This is a great question, and it's very timely as well. I'd like to hand this question over to Rob Cramer so he can provide you with more details about how ATP is focused on driving transformations at all campuses. Rob?
Thanks, Joanna. Transformation and how we're going to proceed with that is critical, and it's really at the center of the work that ATP is doing. When we were first thinking about this, as I mentioned in my introduction, Lauren and I and others, we were really intentional on choosing transformation as part of the language and having the name of the program be the Administrative Transformation Program when we started on this journey. And, October 2021, EDUCAUSE has reviewed a nice special report on digital transformation in higher education that I find helpful. I reflect on this, and they defined the digital transformation as the process of optimizing and transforming an institution's operations, strategic directions, and value proposition through deep and coordinated shifts in culture, workforce, and technology. And that really speaks to me because we've talked about this very much as a people-first program. It's not a technology program. And those coordinated shifts in culture, workforce, and technology are critical. A technology change by itself is really insufficient. During the 100+ design sessions and focus and validation group sessions that will take place during the architect stage, we're really challenging participants from all the campuses to think differently about their workflows and processes. And this is a part of really thinking intentionally about those three elements: the culture, the technology that underlies it, and the people who are involved. We don't want to just take our current processes and workflows and replicate those in our new software, because going in, part of our current state is that people really are dissatisfied with those. They find them to be cumbersome and they don't serve our institutions and our folks well. So our challenge is really to our work teams is to find the best way to use Workday and the Huron Research Suite to provide services, information, and reports to keep campuses running effectively and efficiently, and to see ATP as an opportunity with a clean slate to standardize the processes as much as possible across the ATP system, so that we really achieve that transformational impact, both through this program and getting at our culture and helping people understand how to do that in other parts of our activities. I do want to say, the information reporting parts are a critical piece, both informing future decisions about how we provide services, and as I noted before, in things like regent meetings, so we have the information available for decision makers when they need it and where they need it. So this is, part of what we need to do to meet our evolving requirements in higher education, and this is also the opportunity we have at this moment. So again, Joanna, thanks for that question, and back to you.
Well, thank you, Rob. I really like your high level of vision about this overall ATP program. This is not a technology program. This is a business transformation program that involves culture, people, and technology. Well, thank you for saying that. Here is our next question. When will training for the Workday and Research Suite be available? This is really another question. Jim and Colleen already touched this a little bit, but I'd like to ask Colleen House, the ATP Change Management Lead, to provide more details about upcoming training. Colleen.
Yes, thank you. This is a question that we know a lot of you are thinking about, and we are too. And as Jim mentioned earlier, I'll just underscore some of those points. We have had great discussions about training at our campus visits, and really will use all of that information and feedback to inform our strategy. We know that you have experienced multiple different kinds of implementations, and that training is really a critical piece of success. And so just know that we are hearing you and that planning is underway right now. I'll try to address the two most common questions that we get. One has to do with timing, and the second has to do with modality or the delivery of the training. So Jim touched on this a little bit, and I'll just say about timing. We have really heard, and we are planning to allow sufficient time prior to go live for training to take place. That was really a major point of feedback that we heard at our campuses, and we're really taking that to heart and planning now so we can have all of the content in place and training ready to be delivered at the right time. There's a little bit of nuance here too, because we don't want to start so early that our end users forget what they learn or they have to take additional training. So know that we hear you, and we want to make sure it's at the right time and plenty of time before go live. If you look at the training, the project plan that Joanna showed, which is on our website, end user training will happen in the test and train phase of the project timeline. So that might help you also see our projected dates for training. And then secondly, how training will be delivered, how the modality. We do recognize that there's just a multitude of learning styles. So we're going to build in multiple formats. So there will be in-person training. There will be online training, video recordings, and job aids, just to accommodate all the learning styles. And this will be available, of course, I said before go live, and then after go live as well. We'll continue to support the training needs. We'll communicate about the training opportunities in a variety of ways. So there'll be information on our website, in our newsletter, and events like this. And also, one of our key takeaways from our campus visits is really close coordination with our campus teams and our campus engagement teams. So really, you'll be hearing more about that from your own campus leaders as well as we get closer to training. So I hope that answers some of your questions, and we're always available for more questions or more detail that you would like. Thank you. We'll turn it back to you, Joanna.
Well, thank you, Colleen. And with that final question, our event is concluded today. I hope you find this session very helpful, and I encourage you to stay informed about ATP's progress. If you have any questions or would like to provide feedbacks about today's events, you can send your questions to atp@vc.visc.edu. Thank you for attending today. Have a great day.